Also, Jesus said, I lay down my own life. No one takes it from me. So he was saying that he was laying down his own life.
But can you find contradiction in Jesus?
No.
No. But what he was doing the night before? What was he praying? To whom?
He was going through turmoil.
To whom was he praying?
He was praying to his Father God.
And what he was begging for?
If it were possible that this would pass from him, but not your will, not my will, but
so it was not his will, which had any command over life and death. It was the will of God. So they have two different wills, one subservient and the other dominant. This is another point which you have proved for me. Thank you.
Not quite. Also, another interesting aspect, which I'm sure you would say, well, John said it, so it's not true. He talked about blood and water coming out of the spear wound in the side, which other medical experts, which John wouldn't have known about at the time, but now see as a definite sign of death, that the blood was coagulating, separating from the water, and so you saw both coming out.
Again, there is a difference of our source materials. You must have read some books, but I have read some others as well.
I'm sure you have.
Opinions which have been expressed by experts, medical experts, top people in their line. They say that when his side was pierced, it must have pierced the what they call, the lining around the pleura around the lungs. And whenever somebody is hung in such a state for so many hours with such torture, it is very likely, almost always it should be expected, that pleurisy should develop from this. So this is the reason why water also came out. But all the scriptures are united on this statement that it was not coagulated blood, because the coagulated blood is never gushed out, or rushed out is also the word used in translation. What can, like a fountain, some can spout something, but that is always the serum of blood. This is not separate from water at all. So this is not the right understanding of the events. If it was a dead body, then what should have spurted out should have been the serum mixed with color of blood. But it is impossible for the dead body to give forth water separately and blood separately. It can only happen in case of pleurisy.
Again, we're reading different books.
Thank you.
But, and also the Roman soldiers who were responsible for the execution. I can't believe that these men would not know when a person was dead, especially if their lives may be on the line, if that person wasn't dead.
They were not medical experts, yet they were under the influence of Joseph of Arimathea, a very close friend of Pilate, who was quite sympathetic to Jesus right from the beginning. That is why he washed his hands of his blood. And unless a very strong pressure and irresistible pressure was brought to bear upon him by the Jewish rowdy people gathered around, I am quite sure he would never have given the verdict which he ultimately was compelled to pass. So, it is quite likely that the soldiers there were also given the message that be kinder to this man, don't misbehave. And that is why it was Joseph who approached Pilate begging for the body. And that is why in the Bible it is said that when he told Pilate that I have come to beg for the body, he said, already dead? Why this surprise? So it is one way of understanding the same scriptural statements, and you have the right to an understanding, of course.
It often took many
Thank
days
you.
to die.
Thank you.
There's just one more.
But
Sorry
I have
about
been
that.
told that already we have passed the time, allotted time, by 10 minutes.
Could I just make one more point?
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Please.
In Luke 9:22, Jesus says that he must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, chief priests and teachers of the law, and he must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life. Jesus predicted
Yes,
his own
he
death and
predicted
resurrection.
this, but why do you forget that he also predicted as to the nature of what would happen and how it would happen? He said, no sign will be shown unto the people, this corrupt people of today, but the sign of the prophet of the fish Jonah. Was he right there or not?
We're talking about the
Could he
time.
contradict himself? He could not.
About the time element.
He could not. No, no. This is your interpretation. I am talking of the people who heard this message from him. You were not there to tell them this is what he means. The obvious thing which they must have inferred from this statement was that Jonah, despite the fact that there were conditions which normally kill people, human beings, and there seemed to be no escape from the circumstances through which Jonah went. Yet he survived and was not revived. So those 3 days and 3 nights which you refer are in fact those 3 days and nights on which Jesus himself has thrown light. And I accept his statement, and I accept it on the principle that Jesus could not have contradicted himself.
He said
Thank
he
you.
would be killed.
Thank you.
Rise again.
Killed, you again say killed, but why was not Jonah killed, and what would be the resemblance?
There are many
Resemblance could not be until he survived the death, because he did not remain on the cross for 3 days and 3 nights. He remained in peril of death for 3 days and nights. So the understandings may differ. If you insist, you may continue to hold this view. But I am 100% certain that this is what Jesus meant. Apparently you will see me going through the situation through which Jonah went. Normally no man survives, but he will come out alive. Now this reporting of that he said he would he would be revived from the dead, this is very questionable. Why it is questionable? Because it was the compulsion of the early Christians to believe that he must have died and then, to claim that he must have died and then got revived from the dead. The compulsion was the Roman law. If a man was condemned to death then, as if he is condemned to death today, if anybody becomes accessory after the failure of the machinery to put such a person to death, is found to be guilty of being accessory, of smuggling him out, to helping him, he himself would be hanged to death. This was the compulsion of the society. They could not have said he never died in the first place. They said, all right, he died, but he revived from the dead. By adopting this strategy, they escaped the arm of the Roman law. So that is why I think they used the word dead, which Jesus could not have used, because he couldn't contradict himself. Thank you.
Beg to differ.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now with that I take leave of you. Thank you very much for this very patient and very kindly hearing. And despite the disagreement, as you saw, the gentleman, he was very civilized and very kind and very patient with my rejections of his ideas, though I was also rather kind, I hope.